What is up, Buff Nation, and welcome on into the Sko Show, powered by our friends over at Peckish, 2 locations across Colorado. Check them out. Top-tier wings, top-tier pizza, Aniello, Piro, Chase Howell, and it is transfer portal season, buddy.
It's the best. It's when literally you form your entire roster for the next year. It is crazy. It is hard to keep up with. You got to be on it 24/7 to see where these guys are visiting, who they have in their top schools, which guys are leaving into the transfer portal, which CU had a few of those over the past week. Nobody big, though, which isn't much of a surprise. And yeah, it's fun. I love transfer portal season. It's a good time of year.
Yeah, to your point, it's roster building, right? We're going to have an idea of what the identity of the Colorado Buffaloes are going to look like next year. No more Shedeur Sanders, no more Travis Hunter. But I'm very confident that Coach Prime is going to have those dogs in the trenches, in the wide receiver room, whatever it might be. So make sure to like this video, smash that subscribe button. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of the Sko Show. We're going to go position by position. We've got some rumors. We've got some guys in the portal that we'll talk about. But before we do that, Chase, we talk about the roster turnover. What are some positions of need that you think Colorado needs to address?
Well, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. I think they do need a quarterback. It doesn't have to be a quarterback that you got to give a bag to, but it has to be a solid quarterback that has probably performed at the G5 level or maybe really good at the FCS level, but somebody with some experience that can come in and compete with Juju, maybe push him a little bit. I don't think you need a starting caliber quarterback, but I think somebody in that sort of caliber. Ryan Staub obviously has been a fine backup over the last couple of years, played great in that one start against Utah, but I think you need somebody that you can really trust to compete with Juju Lewis. So we'll start with that quarterback. Wide receiver, I think, is obvious. All of the 4 starting wide receivers from this past year are now gone. So you have a lot to replace. Obviously, we've seen some good things from Draylon Miller, who will most likely be a starter next year. Omarion Miller, if he gets healthy, will be a starter next year. We've seen enough from him, but there's definitely some holes to fill at wide receiver. Running back, I think, is an interesting discussion because we've seen Isaiah Augusta perform pretty well, but I think you need somebody else to compete with Isaiah. We don't know about the situation with Dallin Hayden. He could be a guy that ends up entering the portal, but he hasn't done it officially, so I think you need another running back in there.
Dare I say a real running back?
A real running back, Danny Bailey. And then offensive line, I think obviously your left tackle is solidified. You have one of the best left tackles in college football, but I think all across the rest of that offensive line, probably going to have to find some starters there. So both guard spots, right tackle, and I think somebody needs to come in and compete with Cash and Hank as well at the center position. So lots to replace on the offensive side of the ball, and I think it's pretty much similar on the defensive side of the ball. You feel good about your edge. D tackle, I think they're going to bring in 1 or 2 D tackles. They definitely need linebackers. I think that's priority number 1 on the defensive side of the ball. Corner's pretty solid, I think, with Colton Hood and DJ McKinney, but maybe another guy to come in and back them up, or somebody that can play nickel like what they did with Preston Hodge last year. And then safety is another big one. They probably need 2 starting caliber safeties.
Yeah, and to kind of run with your thought process there for just a moment, we saw Shedeur Sanders come out earlier in the middle of the season and talked about how he's going to help make sure that Colorado has a super team, right? Donating to the NIL collective. It's a tax write-off for him, so you're expecting some big money from all of the boosters and the donors, but also your former quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, who's about to get a bag playing in the NFL.
Travis Hunter just signed a deal with Adidas. He had to have a nice little...
Ooh, he's a 3 stripes guy.
He had to have a nice little guarantee on that contract.
Yeah, so that's the thing. There's going to be no shortage of resources for this Colorado Buffaloes team when it comes to, getting in that portal and offering guys top dollar that are the right fit. But to your point about trying to add some depth around some depth, not death. That's
we hope they're not adding depth.
Of that. But in regards to adding some depth across the roster here, competition is good. And Coach Prime is a guy, I think Shedeur and Travis are the only 2 players in Coach Prime's first 2 years in Colorado that were like solidified. Right, like there wasn't really any challenge to their spots. You always knew that Travis was going to be your starting corner and receiver, and you always knew Shedeur was going to be your starting quarterback. But I think everybody else has had to earn their keep across the board. And you saw, different guys playing in different spots throughout the course of last year. Just think about how different the roster was from year 1 to year 2. Naturally, that's going to come because, how exciting Colorado was in year one under Coach Prime, getting some higher level talent in year two. But I don't think that there's anything completely solidified with this roster. I think Coach Prime wants to give everybody the opportunity, guys that have been here and the new guys that are coming in, to try to earn their keep with this team.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see as much turnover as we've seen the last 2 years, but I think we definitely will see some turnover on this team. I think that if they want to continue to compete for Big 12 championships, they're going to have to re-up this roster. They're going to have to replace guys like Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders that are pretty much irreplaceable, but they're going to have to find some serious talent if they want to compete for a Big 12 championship, if they want to compete for a national championship, which we know is Coach Prime's ultimate goal.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so impactful about Travis and Shedeur's tenure in Colorado is, look, they didn't get to a college football playoff. They didn't get to a national championship, but Shedeur is projected to go number one in the NFL draft. And Travis Hunter's about to win the Heisman Trophy and also probably be a top 5 pick as well. And so what that has done is laid the foundation, right? Like, you don't get a Juju Lewis out of high school without the success that Colorado had in year 2 under Coach Prime. And that's what I'm so excited, because I think maybe there were some players, high school and kids in the portal that were maybe on the fence. Is this a gimmick or is this the real thing? I think we've all learned that what Coach Prime has built, he's living up to everything he said he was going to when he was first hired as head football coach at the University of Colorado. So I'm excited to see what he ends up doing in the portal, the types of players he brings in, and how that's going to overall impact this roster collectively here. But let's go position by position. And there's a lot of positions of need, as Chase highlighted there, that Colorado is going to have to get some depth or just add some starting level talent to. We'll start with the quarterback. We know that Juju Lewis is going to be their guy. Part of the reason why he came to Colorado is because he wanted the opportunity to play right away. So if he lives up to his end of the bargain and looks good in the spring practices and all that good stuff, stays healthy, the expectation is that Juju Lewis will be the starting quarterback for the Colorado Buffaloes come next season. But you mentioned they need some depth there, and I know you've got your eye on a guy or two as well.
Yeah, what we've heard so far in the transfer portal is Caden Salter out of Liberty. He actually started his career at Tennessee and then had a couple of really good years at Liberty. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the transfer portal. So I think that one came as a little bit of a surprise, considering that most people are planning on seeing Juju Lewis as the starting quarterback next year. And if you're going to go get a top quarterback out of the portal, you're probably going to have to spend some serious money on him. So I'm interested to see why he wants to come visit. But it does sound like he's going to plan a visit over the next couple of weeks. Obviously very productive over the last couple of years at Liberty, 77 touchdowns, AP.
Yeah, and I wonder, because to your point, like, you don't need to go after like a solidified, tried and true blue chip type of guy, right? Because you have that expectation with Juju Lewis, but it would be nice for them to get some depth at that position. In Liberty, I forget which quarterback recently got drafted out of Liberty a couple of years ago. Malik Willis, right? And I know, he's been up and down his NFL career, but
mostly down.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's been.
Where is he? He's in Green Bay now, right?
Is he?
Yeah, he started with Tennessee,
right, actually,
but
yeah.
No, anytime I see Liberty and quarterback, it just kind of comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean that's been a good football team over the years. They've won a lot of games over the last 5 years, and Caden Salter was a big reason why they've won a lot of games the past 2 years.
Yeah, and moving it along here, is there anyone else on the quarterback department that maybe you got your eye on?
We'll see what ends up coming across. I think that's the one target right now that they're not too sure of, but they're probably in talks with a lot of quarterbacks. The biggest thing about quarterback, though, is it will be the most expensive position to try to fill.
Yeah, no doubt. And I want to read this tweet that Coach Prime sent out earlier this week that I think kind of hits on the mentality of Colorado when it comes to recruiting in the transfer portal. He says, to many of the portal young men that's looking and searching for the right situation, you're going to get vetted thoroughly by us. And then I pray you know the difference of being offered a bag and being offered a blessing. Ask Grandma Nem what I mean. # Coach Prime, quote, I ain't hard to find.
What is Grandma what?
It says Grandma Nem.
Grandma Nem.
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't even know.
I don't know.
Oh, Grandma and him.
There you go.
Got it.
But point being, Coach Prime is like, yes, they're going to have money, but they're not going to just throw money around, for the sake of throwing money around to get talent. They want high character individuals as well.
Yeah, if it's guys that are just looking for a bag, they're probably not going to take them. If it's guys that need a little money to come play there, they have some money to be able to give it to them. But I think at a lot of these other schools, especially in the SEC, they're more willing to throw the bag at them.
Right. And we'll have to see how it shakes out. Moving along to the running back room, we don't have any firm names that I don't think have been necessarily connected to Colorado. I'm sure they'll end up getting a guy or two. But you know what else, when I think of that, like, I know you and I are kind of old school football heads, as is Danny Bailey behind the screen. Like, I like the idea of having a bell cow type of back, or maybe a 1-2 punch that you can rely on. But if anything's clear, it's that Colorado wants to pass the football. And I think that's why they're going to prioritize offensive line to protect Juju Lewis and also focus on that wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think running back, just like we talk about in the NFL, it's just not that valuable of a position. Obviously, you really want to run the football. But the top running back in the portal versus the 20th running back in the portal doesn't typically make that much of a difference. And I do like what they have in Micah Welch and Isaiah Augustov. I just think it's probably good to bring in another running back, especially as it appears that Dallin Hayden might be going elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. And, kind of running with that thought, we know wide receiver, right? You mentioned Draylon Miller or Marion Miller when he recovers from the injury. Those are two guys that you should be able to rely on, right? But they were more in a secondary type of role. Not that they're secondary type of players. They got high level talent.
Whenever Omarion Miller was in the game, he made big time plays.
Exactly. But it's like, you got Travis Hunter, you've got Will Shepard, you've got Jimmy Horn Jr. So now it's going to be time for these guys to step up. But I'm expecting Colorado to target a few different guys. And we already have some connections of players in the portal looking at Colorado.
Yeah, this position gets me a little bit excited. It makes it move a little bit. So why is Danny laughing at me? So Joe Wilson, wide receiver out of Tulsa. He was a true freshman this past year, but one of the best true freshmen in all of college football. Second highest PFF grade among all first-year receivers behind Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith. So he is actually ahead of Ryan Williams at Alabama, the two best true freshman wide receivers out there. 30 catches, 588 yards, and 5 touchdowns, a whopping 9.6 yards per catch. He is planning on visiting. I don't know if we have a date yet for Joe Williams, but he has talked about trying to make it out to Boulder. So that guy makes me excited. Eric Rivers out of Florida International, a guy that had over 1,000 yards at Florida International this past year and 12 touchdowns. He's visiting on December 21st. Caleb Odom, very interesting guy on Twitter that has gotten a lot of attention on social media because of his connections to one Juju Lewis. He was a 5-star coming out of high school, played with Juju Lewis, went to Alabama, actually played a little bit as a true freshman, which obviously shows his talent level. 7 catches, 65 yards. We're going to call him a wide receiver in here. He was kind of recruited as a tight end, 6'5", 227 pounds. So he has tight end size, but I think when you watch him play, he plays more like a wide receiver, which is kind of what we've seen from the CU offense. They're going to get a couple tight ends in there to block, but I think what they really want to do is split out 4, and I think he would be a guy that would look more like a wide receiver in this offense, whether that's in the slot or on the outside. The last wide receiver that we haven't heard about a visit yet, but there's definitely been some interest there. He's the number 2 ranked player in the portal on 24/7 Sports. I believe he's number 3 on 3. KC Concepcion from NC State. He had CU listed in his top 6. So some serious talent that want to come play with Coach Prime and want to get balls from Juju Lewis.
Well, I like the idea real quick to just backtrack of Caleb Odom because, one, I like the size. And so you could also potentially use some help and depth at the tight end position. So you get a guy that's, versatile in that sense. But I also like the idea of pairing him up with a guy that he's familiar receiving balls from in Juju Lewis, right? Like the opportunity to have a little bit of a pre-established connection on top of the other guys that are already on the team and that are going to come in via the portal. So that's definitely one guy that I've got my eye on. I think that makes a lot of sense.
There's a reason why he entered the portal, and it probably didn't even take 24 hours for him to say that he's visiting Colorado this week.
And there's a reason why you enter the portal when you play at Alabama.
Yeah, and I actually got some pretty good playing time as a true freshman. There's not many wide receivers that can walk into Alabama and play.
Yeah, and you talk about how, some of these guys, maybe, CU's in the top 5, top 6, whatever it might be. I would expect a lot of that to change the moment they sit down with Coach Prime and the moment they come to Boulder. Because I feel like it's one thing to see it on TV. It's another thing to get the Coach Prime experience, for lack of a better phrase.
There's not many recruits or transfer portal guys that have taken a visit to Boulder over the weekend and have not committed. I think the hit rate has to be one of the best in the nation. If you can get them to Boulder, it's I wouldn't call it a virtual lock, but I think that hit rate has to be somewhere between 70 and 80% on guys that have taken visits to CU. they want
Yeah.
to come here once they see it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's the magic of Boulder. That's the magic of the Coach Prime effect for sure. So I'm expecting a lot of guys that are in the portal to end up making their way to Colorado at the wide receiver position for sure. As we get ready for what's going to be a ferocious and wild offseason portal season for Colorado. But moving along to tight end, talked about that briefly here. One guy that has a CU connection is tight end Zach Atkins.
Yeah, visiting this weekend. Seems like there's a lot of interest there. Northeast Missouri State University.
Ooh.
I know nothing about
Neither do
Northeast
I.
Missouri State. I assume it's D2. But he's gotten a ton of interest in the portal. He's gotten a lot of Power 4 offers so far. Not highly productive, but I haven't seen the film, and I bet if these Power 4 coaches are turning on the film and wanting to offer him, there's definitely something there. And tight ends usually it has to do with their athleticism, their ability to block. So interested in Zach Atkins. I think they probably end up landing him after this weekend.
Yeah, that'll definitely be very interesting. Let's move it along to the offensive line. We know, to your point, you've got Jordan Seaton anchored, right? He's been phenomenal as a true freshman coming out of the IMG Academy. But, you mentioned competition for Cash Cleveland and some of these other guys on the offensive line, handful of connections to CU.
Yeah, they have to replace a few starters there. And I think especially at the interior, Carter Miller out of Louisiana Monroe, he's visiting this weekend. Played this past year at Louisiana Monroe and played at James Madison before that. He played guard at JMU and played center this past year. So a guy that you can move around on the interior, maybe a nice depth piece as well. I think the one that a lot of Bus fans are interested in is Joshua Bates, because of when he was being recruited out of Durango, there was a lot of interest there. His dad played football at CU. He was a legacy kid. He was getting offers from just about everybody, a 4-star recruit, and there's not many 4-star recruits coming out of Durango. He entered the portal. He has a connection to Phil Lodeholt. Obviously, Lodeholt was involved when he was getting recruited to Oklahoma when Lodeholt was an offensive line coach there. So there's a lot of connections here. He's supposed to visit probably in the next couple of weeks, and I would think that CU has a great chance of getting him. That's probably going to be your starting center if they're able to land him.
Well, that's exciting. You love the Colorado connection for sure.
Yeah, another legacy kid, I guess. Arden Walker, his dad Arthur Walker played at CU, and it'd be nice to get another guy that his dad plays at CU.
Yeah,
both Colorado kids too.
That would be awesome. And one other guy that has a Colorado connection is interior offensive lineman Jordan White out of Liberty as well. He's set to visit coming up this Saturday too. So we'll keep an eye on that. So, offensive line, tight end, wide receiver, maybe a quarterback, maybe a running back or two. Those are the positions of need that Colorado is going to try to address throughout the course of the transfer portal season. So let's move it over to defense here. We know, the defense arguably was the strength of the Colorado Buffaloes, I would say, this past season. A really good balance with Travis Hunter on defense, also the impact that he has on offense and the explosiveness of CU. But I thought their defense was phenomenal throughout the course of the year, really with the exception of one or two games. But let's start with the defensive line. A couple of guys here, Gabriel Lightfoot out of Fresno State and Jaheim Oates as well, another Bama boy.
Yeah, Gabriel Lightfoot, highly productive throughout, I think, 3 seasons at Fresno State. I'm pretty sure he started at least the last 2 years and played all 3 years in every single game. So a guy that has played a lot of football experience, that always helps on the defensive line. Obviously, another big body. Defensive line's a position where the more the merrier. And you're going to have to rotate a lot of guys there. So that one's exciting. Jaheim Oates, I think, has made a lot of waves on social media. The Alabama transfer, this dude is huge, 6'5", 330 pounds. He already got a few crystal ball predictions to be going to Colorado, so it seems like things have been moving along nicely there. Started 13 games for Bama over the last 2 years, 55 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 4 pass breakups. This is a guy that can move people on the interior. So if you're looking to replace Chidozie Nwankwo, who did a great job plugging the holes, taking on double teams, I think Jaheim Oates is a guy that can do very similar. Obviously, Oates is a completely different body type, but a guy that's massive on the interior line is always going to help you out.
Yeah, and I think, Coach Prime is going to be able to, do the thing with the defensive backs and the offense. But when you get to sit down with Warren Sapp, as well as the rest of the defensive coaching staff, I'd imagine that as long as, 1 + 1 = 2, I'd imagine that it's a pretty easy sell to try to get some of these guys in here. But real quick, we got a couple of other positions that we want to talk about. Let me tell you about our friends over at Peckish here real quick, guys. Our presenting sponsor here on the Sko Show. Shout out to our guys Byron and all the incredible staff over there at Peckish. 2 locations across Colorado. Hey, if you're a prospective recruit, looking to come to Colorado.
They'll be at Peckish.
Yeah, I've been told that Peckish is a hot spot for these
Peckish.
recruits. So, look, man, incredible chicken wings, incredible pizza. I think we're going to head over there after we finish up this show here today. And I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say outside of it is a great place to be a CU Buffalo fan. It's a great place to visit if you're a CU recruit, and you're going to get some good grub and drinks along the way.
You're going to get fantastic food, and the CU coaching staff and recruit staff knows about it, and they love bringing guys there because that's going to be their favorite spot to eat while they're living in Boulder. So might as well do it on their visit.
For sure. 2 locations across Colorado, one up in Boulder on the hill, so walking distance of the campus in Folsom Field. So if you're going to some basketball games this season, check them out. Football games next year, check them out as well. And for any of the Denver Metro Colorado Buffaloes fans, their new location off of I-25 and Bellevue Station. I always like to describe it as like it's essentially a bar that you would find in Boulder, but in the Denver Metro. So be sure to check out our friends over at Peckish. Shout out to them, our presenting sponsor here on the Sko Show.
The best. I can't wait to go after this show.
Yeah, you and me both. So, all right, couple more positions we want to highlight. Let's move over to the safety room here. A little bit of turnover there as well, but
a lot of turnover.
Just like every other position we've talked about already, some high-level talent linked to Colorado.
Yeah, so they have Carter Stoutmeyer, who I think they really like. We'll see if he ends up playing nickel, which he did a lot towards the end of the season, but he also replaced Shiloh Sanders at safety, so he can move around in all of the positions in the defensive backfield. They like Carter Stoutmeyer, but they're going to have to find a couple safeties. When you're replacing guys like Cam Silman-Craig, who's been he's been probably one of the most important players on the defense the last couple of years.
Let's go.
And then Shiloh Sanders as well. So you got 2 guys to replace there. They're in talks with wow. Okay. He led the team in tackles in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because the
we love Shiloh.
The linebackers and the defensive linemen weren't getting to him fast enough, but he did lead the team in tackles in 2023. Taufik Bayard, safety out of South Florida, is set to visit on December 20th. He announced this dude can play. A guy that I think a lot of CU fans are excited about. 54 tackles, 2 sacks, and 1 interception this past year. So highly productive at South Florida, the type of guy that you would expect CU to go out there and target. Probably have a good chance with him when he comes here on December 20th. And then TJ Metcalf out of Arkansas. I think this is a guy that if CU can land, he might even be an upgrade over Cam Silman-Craig. He has been awesome over his couple of years at Arkansas. 57 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 10 pass deflections, and 3 interceptions. In his career at Arkansas. You can move him all around the defensive backfield. He's an absolute playmaker. So I really like those 2 guys at safety. Those are the guys that I've been keeping my eye on, and hopefully they're able to land him. TJ, I don't think has scheduled a visit yet, but there's already definitely been some interest. Actually, Cam Silman-Craig tweeted at him and said, come replace me. You can even wear my number. So,
well, hey, maybe they don't have an official visit scheduled yet, but we know that Coach Prime certainly has his eye on some of those guys as well as some more that maybe we haven't mentioned at these positions. But another position of need for Colorado is going to be that linebacking group.
Maybe the most important position of need on the defensive side of the ball. They like Jalen Wester. I think Jalen Wester could be a pretty good starting linebacker at that position. We don't know the situation on Trevor Woods. He obviously asked a red shirt, and he hasn't entered the transfer portal yet. So if you can get him back, but is he more of a safety? Is he more of a linebacker? What do you actually get out of him? We saw how much better that CU defense looked with Nakai Hill-Green when he replaced Trevor at the beginning of the season. So I don't think you can count on Trevor Woods.
Law firm, baby.
I do think Jalen Wester can be a good linebacker at this level, but you're going to have to go out there and get a few linebackers, especially when you replace 2 guys that were as productive as the law firm was. Reggie Hughes, a linebacker out of Jacksonville State, said that he's going to visit on December 16th. He was an all-conference USA selection, 83 tackles, 4.5 sacks. He transferred from Ole Miss to Jacksonville State to get some playing time. I would assume that West Virginia might be in play there as well, with Rich Rodriguez heading to West Virginia. He was the old Jacksonville State coach. So we'll see if they can get him, but a guy that is highly productive there.
Yeah, and I think last but not least, when it comes to the position groups, I don't care who they get, Chase. Can we get someone that can kick the ball out of the end zone, though? I mean, you're playing at altitude up against the Flatirons, right? You know, that's been someone that you got your eye on for sure.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about this as a position of need because you kind of forget about it when you're talking offense and defense, but kicker.
Yeah, and there's a couple of guys, or one guy in particular, rather, that I think Colorado might try to target.
Yes, visiting this weekend out of Louisiana Tech is Buck Buchanan. I went up, I had to look up his bio. I had to see what he's been doing. 14th nationally in touchbacks, 8th in touchback percentage in the country. That's what they need.
Yes. Yeah, it says it all. He made a 57-yarder, 55-yarder in 2024. What was the game? Was it Clemson in their ACC championship game where their kicker nailed like a 58-yard field goal for the win? Right? You see these NFL kickers now that are making, 55 plus in their sleep. And so I think, it's within reason to try to get a guy that at the college level can try to do something.
Yeah, I think it's an important point because Alejandro Mata has been great, but you're not sending him out there to go kick a 50-yard field goal.
No.
You're probably not sending him out there to kick anything more than 45. And I think they've relied so much on Shedeur Sanders' ability to just go make a play on 4th down. And they've been aggressive when they're in that territory, but sometimes it comes down to a field goal. So if you have a guy that can nail it from 50 plus, which Buck Buchanan seems to be able to do, I think he can be a massive asset on this team just with touchbacks and long range field goals. You can still let Mata go out there. He's automatic. Automata inside 40, but it would be nice to have somebody that has a leg to be able to get it out of the end zone and kick the 50-yarders.
Yeah, that would be nice for sure. Let us know in the comment section, what are some positions of need that you're looking for? What are some players that you're eyeing in the transfer portal? What does Colorado need to do to build upon their successful season this past year and moving forward with no more Travis Hunter and no more Shedeur Sanders? They've got the talent, but it's about getting the most out of that talent. So make sure to let us know in the comment section your thoughts on the roster construction of this Colorado Buffaloes program moving forward. Also, make sure to like this video and smash that subscribe button. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of the Sko Show with myself and Chase Howell and all the other great content we have here at Mile High Sports. But any closing thoughts before we get out of here, my friend?
Lord Jesus, bring them to me, Lord. Bring them to me, Lord.
They're coming.
They're coming.
They're coming. I'm excited to see how this roster shapes up. And I know they still got a bowl game to play, but I'm already excited for next season.
I can't wait. And I love the off season as well. I think the viewers can probably tell that I love this type of stuff.
Yeah,
Transfer
for
portal
sure.
series.
And shout out to our guy, Adam Munstertiger, friend of the program. He'll have you guys covered at buffstampede.com.
Yes, he has the full visitor list, by the way. I think you have to be a subscriber to see who's visiting this weekend. I know we ran over a few of those guys, but we didn't talk about all of them. So go ahead and check out buffstampede.com because that's the good stuff right there.
Well said. Well, for Chase Howell, you can follow him on social at Chase Howell _. I'm at Media by AP. Really appreciate you, Buff Nation, tapping in. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, drop some comments. Let us know your thoughts. And also check out our friends over at Peckish. Let's go Buffs, baby.
Let's go Buffs.